All right, strap in, everyone, because today we are taking a deep dive into the world of notch signaling.
Oh, notch signaling.
You got it.
It's one of my favorites.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And, our listener wants to really unpack it step by step. And I got to say, I kind of want to too, because it's this really incredible system of cell-to-cell communication
It is.
that really determines cell fate.
It does.
So it's kind of like if you imagine like a cellular game of telephone, but with like really high stakes.
Yes.
Because it's determining what these cells are going to become.
Exactly.
Now, we've got a lot of ground to cover today. Do you want to know specifically about delta and Jagged, the ligands,
Yes.
all of that? And we're going to get to that.
We are.
But what really struck me in the research is how this is all connected to different diseases.
Absolutely.
And even leukemia.
Uh-huh.
It's really amazing how like these tiny miscommunications
That's right.
at the cellular level can have such a huge impact
Right.
on like an organism as a whole.
Hmm.
And it's a really ancient system too.
Yeah.
We find it in everything from fruit flies to humans.
Oh, wow.
So it's been around for a long time doing important things.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So let's start with the basics.
Oh,
How about that?
That's good.
So imagine you've got two cells.
Okay.
They're just chilling out next to each other.
Right next to each other.
And they need to make this like life-altering decision about their future.
Uh-huh.
But this isn't like, sending a text message or like an
Right.
email.
It's a very exclusive meeting.
Oh, okay.
They have to be right next to each other.
So no long-distance calls in this network?
No. This is what we call juxtacrine signaling.
Juxtacrine signaling.
Yeah.
Meaning the cells need to be practically touching.
Yeah, like a secret handshake.
Like a secret handshake between cells.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm picturing these two cells and they're shaking hands.
Yeah.
But what are like the hands
Right.
in this scenario?
The hands are the notch receptor. Okay.
On one cell, and its ligands, either delta or jagged, on the other.
So delta or jagged, we hear those names a lot.
Yes.
They're the ligands.
They are.
Okay,
And
yeah.
these are special proteins that are embedded right in the cell membrane.
So it's like they're like these built-in communication ports on the cell surface.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So we've got these hands clasped.
Yes.
But how does the message actually get through?
Oh,
Like,
right.
what's happening there?
So that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The binding of the delta or jagged to the notch receptor sets off a chain reaction inside the cell.
Okay.
It's like setting off a tiny, incredibly precise Rube Goldberg machine.
I love that.
Yeah.
A tiny Rube Goldberg machine.
Yes.
All right, so walk me through this cellular Rube Goldberg machine step by step.
Okay, step one is that binding event that we just talked about.
Okay.
The ligand, either the delta or the jagged, latches onto the notch receptor.
Okay.
And that triggers the second step. And that is a series of cuts
Right.
made by specific enzymes called proteases.
Cutting.
Yes.
I thought we were talking about communication,
I know.
not like cellular surgery.
It seems drastic, but it's essential.
Oh, okay.
So you see, tucked inside the notch receptor
Uh,
is a hidden message.
okay.
The notch intracellular domain, or as we call it, the NICD.
NICD, got it.
And these protease cuts
Okay.
free the NICD.
Uh-huh.
And that's the signal that needs to reach the nucleus.
So the NICD is like the VIP with
Yeah.
like backstage passes to the cell's control center.
Exactly.
But how does it get past the bouncers at the nuclear membrane?
Right, so that's a process called nuclear translocation.
Nuclear translocation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the NICD, once released by those protease cuts, has a special ticket that gets it right through the nuclear membrane
Okay.
and into the nucleus.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
Ligand binds, proteases, make some strategic cuts.
Right.
The NICD gets a free pass to the nucleus.
Yes.
What happens next?
So this is the grand finale.
Oh,
The NICD isn't just a tourist in the nucleus.
Oh.
It gets to work.
okay.
It teams up with other proteins to activate specific genes.
Okay.
And these genes are the blueprints for the cell's future,
Okay.
telling it what to become.
So like a construction crew shows up
Yes,
with the blueprint.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they start building.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Sure.
We've got these proteases
Yeah.
that are making these critical cuts.
Right.
Are we talking about any old pair of molecular scissors here?
That's a good question.
Or are there specific ones involved?
So there are a few key players,
Okay.
but one particularly important protease
Okay.
is called gamma-secretase.
Gamma-secretase. Now, doesn't that name ring a bell from somewhere else?
It might. You might be thinking of Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, okay.
So gamma-secretase is also involved in cleaving another protein called amyloid precursor protein, which is implicated in Alzheimer's.
Wow.
So this tiny enzyme plays a huge role in various cellular processes,
Oh, wow.
both healthy and disease-related.
That is incredible. So
Exactly.
we've got the ligands, we've got the receptors, we've got the proteases,
Yes.
and this like crucial NICD making its way to the nucleus.
It's a complex dance with a lot of moving parts.
It's a lot.
It is.
It really is.
And it all happens within a tiny space.
Right.
You might even wonder, how does the cell keep everything organized and running smoothly amidst all of this molecular hustle and bustle?
That is a great question.
It is. And that is where the idea of microdomains comes in.
Microdomains.
Yeah, so think of them like designated workspaces within the cell,
Okay.
ensuring that all the players in the notch signaling pathway are in close proximity.
So instead of just like having these receptors and ligands and proteases just like randomly floating around bumping into each other by chance, the cell creates these little like hogs of activity.
Exactly. It's like having a dedicated workshop.
Okay.
Where everything you need is within arm's reach.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it makes the whole process more efficient and precise.
Much more.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But what happens when things go wrong in this system?
Right.
You mentioned earlier that notch signaling is implicated in a bunch of diseases.
It is.
So let's talk about that.
Okay.
What happens when things go wrong?
So both overactive and underactive notch signaling can cause problems.
So it's like a Goldilocks situation.
It is. The signal needs to be just right for cells to develop and function normally.
So what happens when the signal's too strong?
So one of the main things that notch signaling does is control cell growth and division.
Okay.
If the signal is constantly on R, cells can start dividing uncontrollably.
And that's like a hallmark of cancer, right?
And that's a hallmark of cancer.
So in a way, cancer cells can hijack the notch pathway to kind of like fuel their own growth.
It's a complex interplay.
Yeah.
But yes, overactive notch signaling is implicated in several types of cancer, including certain forms of leukemia.
Wow.
So researchers are actively investigating how to target this pathway to develop new cancer therapies.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that problems can arise from underactive notch signaling.
Yes.
So if too much signaling is like hitting the gas pedal, is too little signaling like slamming on the brakes?
It's more like losing your navigation system.
Okay.
The cells don't receive the proper instructions about what to become, leading to developmental defects.
So they kind of end up lost
Yeah.
on their like developmental journey,
Yeah.
potentially taking the wrong path or ending up in the wrong place.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's got to have serious consequences.
It does. So Alagille syndrome, for example, is a genetic disorder that affects multiple organs and is often linked to mutations in the Jagged 1 ligand.
Okay, so Jagged 1, that's one of those ligands we talked about before.
It is.
Okay.
And this disrupts notch signaling.
So it really highlights just how crucial this pathway is
Exactly.
for proper development.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how a single mutation
No.
in one component of the pathway
Yeah.
can have these like widespread effects on the body.
It does. It underscores the importance of understanding not only how the pathway works, but also how it's regulated.
Okay.
And speaking of regulation, remember we talked about inhibitory pathways?
Right, like the cellular braking system.
Exactly.
Is this where they come into play with notch signaling?
This is exactly where they come into play.
Okay.
So cells have sophisticated mechanisms to fine-tune notch activity, ensuring that the signal isn't too strong or too weak.
So it's like having a dimmer switch
It's like having a dimmer switch.
to adjust the intensity of the signal.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that analogy. So are there specific examples of inhibitory pathways that affect notch signaling?
There are many. And researchers are still uncovering the complexities of this regulatory network.
Oh, wow.
But the key point is that understanding notch signaling isn't just about knowing what turns it on, but also what turns it off.
That's a really important point.
It is.
It's like with any complex system, you need both like the activating mechanisms and the inhibitory mechanism to maintain that balance.
To maintain balance.
And prevent things from going haywire.
Precisely. And this balance is crucial for maintaining cellular harmony. And ensuring proper development and function throughout life.
Throughout life, that's important.
It is.
Now, you mentioned the MMB202 thyroid hormone receptors.pdf document earlier.
I did.
And there's actually a fascinating connection there to notch signaling.
There is.
Oh, tell me more.
So the document describes an oncoprotein called VERBA.
VERBA.
Which is a mutant form of a thyroid hormone receptor. And get this, VA behaves similarly to a non-functional Notch receptor.
Wait, so even though VRBA is linked to cancer,
Yeah.
it acts like a broken Notch receptor.
Yes.
I thought cancer was all about, like, uncontrolled growth.
Right.
Which would imply, like, an overactive pathway.
That's the interesting part. So VRBA and a non-functional Notch receptor both have trouble turning genes on, even when they should.
So it's like they're stuck in the off position.
They're stuck in the off position.
Wow.
So it's not just about too much or too little Notch signaling, but also about the ability to turn the signal on and off appropriately.
So there's an added layer of complexity there.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of the right signal at the right time and the delicate balance required for proper cellular function.
That is fascinating.
It is.
This deep dive has been incredible.
It has.
We've gone from, like, a basic understanding of Notch signaling to uncovering its roles in development and disease. And this, like, intricate interplay of activating an inhibitory mechanism.
And we've only scratched the surface.
Oh, really?
There's still so much we don't know about this fascinating pathway and its implications for understanding human health.
That is mind-boggling to think about all these, like, cellular conversations happening right now inside our bodies. Orchestrating everything from development to disease.
It is amazing.
It makes you appreciate the complexity and elegance of life at its most fundamental level.
Absolutely. And speaking of those cellular conversations, here's something to ponder. We've talked about how Notch signaling is like a cellular game of telephone with the message passed from one cell to another. But how does the cell ensure that the message doesn't get garbled along the way?
That's a great question.
It is.
It makes me think about how prone we humans are to miscommunication.
Exactly.
You'd think that with all these intricate checks and balances in place, that cells would have it figured out.
You would think so.
But maybe not.
Well, that's the beauty of science. There's always more to explore. And who knows, maybe by studying how cells maintain the fidelity of their communication, we can learn a thing or two about improving our own communication skills.
That would be a pretty amazing outcome.
It would.
I'm already feeling inspired.
Good.
To delve a little deeper into the research. And see what other secrets Notch signaling holds.
It's a fascinating journey, and I encourage you to keep exploring.
It's pretty amazing to me.
That
with all these things that can go wrong. With Notch signaling from developmental disorders to cancer. That any of us turn out normal at all.
It really highlights how precise and tightly regulated these cellular processes need to be.
For sure.
But, you know, there's still a lot we don't know. Notch signaling is incredibly complex, and scientists are still working to uncover all of its secrets.
Speaking of secrets, you left me with a pretty big cliffhanger.
I did.
Before we left off. How do cells manage to keep their messages from getting garbled? In this intricate game of cellular telephone.
So it's a question that researchers are still grappling with, but they're discovering some fascinating mechanisms. So one key factor is likely the precise organization of those microdomains that we discussed.
So those little hubs of activity.
Exactly. By clustering all of the necessary components together, the cell minimizes the chances of the signal getting lost or misinterpreted.
So it's all about efficiency.
It's all about efficiency.
And like minimizing opportunities for error. Makes sense to me.
But there's more to it than just spatial organization. There are also feedback loops and other regulatory mechanisms that constantly monitor and adjust Notch activity.
So it's like having a team of quality control experts.
Exactly.
Making sure everything's running smoothly.
Very important.
Wow, I'm starting to see a pattern here. It seems like every time we uncover one layer of complexity in Notch signaling, we find another layer underneath.
That's the beauty of biology. And it's what makes studying Notch signaling so fascinating.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a fundamental pathway with far-reaching implications for our understanding of development, disease, and even the evolution of life itself.
Wow. Well, I think it's safe to say that this deep dive has been a resounding success.
I think so, too.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the basic steps of Notch signaling to its role in diseases and the intricate mechanisms that keep it in check.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you.
Likewise.
And hopefully you now have a better appreciation for the amazing world of cellular communication.
Yes.
And the power of tiny signals to shape our lives.
Absolutely. And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this journey into the fascinating world of notch signaling.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed the deep dive and come away with a newfound appreciation for the incredible complexity and elegance of life at the cellular level.
It is amazing.
Until next time.